calling for these protests are criminals, bandits, illegal miners, armed robbers, and unemployed youths who want to seize the opportunity to break people's shops and carry their property. So, in essence, if we join this strike in Zamfara state, we are worsening the situation.
Wow, how do people respond to that now? We've got Mr. Samaila Musa here with us. He is the National Coordinator, Grassroots Mobilization Initiative. Good morning. Thank you for coming in today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Speaking about Zamfara, there's a lot going on. I mean, yes, we heard the Commissioner of Police and how they came to that conclusion. Many would like to know. But equally, this morning, there were reports that a lawmaker and the former local government chairman were caught. I think they said they're in police custody at the moment for kidnapping in Zamfara. Because here we are talking about security, how do we ensure things go wrong. And then for those who have been accusing politicians of being involved, do they have a justification now with this?
Obviously. I mean, we've always been calling for this. Look, there's no point trying to, you know, protect some individuals because they hold a political office and they got their hands deeply soiled with people's blood. I mean, people have died in their hundreds of thousands in that state alone in particular. And it's not like there's a stop to it. This thing is still an ongoing thing. And some politicians are really capitalizing on that to kind of have some political, you know, grip on the people or certain areas, some for politics, some for business, because there's still the issue of gold mining going on. There are reports of how some heavy politicians move in with their private jets, you know, send their men to go in the midnight, take the gold, and out of this country. Nobody is looking in that direction. And we've also heard where someone who should know better, or someone who is in position to actually know what is the right thing. Because if you have somebody in position of a minister, for example, ordinarily would think, okay, he knows what the law is, or he knows what is called boundaries. And himself is deeply involved with them. And so this calls for concern, actually.
So that's the part where we don't know how do we verify all of that, because he himself has said, look, these are accusations so people cannot prove. But at the risk of sounding like a broken record, in terms of asking you, how did Zamfara get here in the first place? Because they've always had gold.
Yeah.
Has this always been the case? This banditry, this magnitude now. How did it get out of hand?
Yeah, so, you know, this whole thing started when people started realizing that, okay, you can actually use force to take what you think belongs to you or does not belong to you. So it started from when some of those politicians started bringing in mercenaries, all in the name of politics. Eventually, these mercenaries, after the assignment, there's nowhere to go. They realized there's some kind of money to be made here. Some of them were deployed to go and start guarding their mining sites. Some, they moved in with some engineers to make this kind of seismic tests to verify what gold deposit you have in so place. And it happens to be that some of the villages where villages are already settled, have their homes there, they realize that they're actually building those houses or those huts on top of gold. So they need to be displaced. Really? You can't come down, you can't come there overnight and tell them you want to relocate them. It has to happen under violence. So what do? Deploy your mercenaries, let them go in the name of banditry and all of that. And because the villagers will have to be forced to move out of the place where they are being killed. You know what I'm saying? So really, these are some of the genesis of this problem. But to a large extent, some of them, the thing has actually gone out of their hands.
But are there reports from security agencies that this is actually what is going on? Because if people hear you, they'll think, look, politicians they always fabricate things.
See, well, if security report does not indict some people, it's because we know the system that we operate under in Nigeria. We've had a case of where at some point some big bandits were caught, and we had how a former governor also was sending message to Abuja that the man must be released and all of that. So you know there are so much complicity around these things that it's only, I mean, the security report can actually exonerate some people, not because they were not involved, but because, yeah, they're powerful. They can actually buy their way out of it. Yeah.
I mean, with the governor, we've had the governor here actually say even worse, you know, painting a very grim picture of Zamfara and all of these dynamics. Has anything gotten, is there anything that has been done from his administration to make things better in your view?
Yeah, well, my view is that I think the man came in with a lot of zeal and enthusiasm, and that has been displayed over time with kind of a charisma he brought on board. I mean, because you see, charisma anywhere in the world changes quite a lot of things. It changes perception. It shows that this person, because ordinarily it just motivates you when you have a sitting leader who actually inspires you by his words, by his action. His body language has said it all. Some of the first steps he took, that from our observation, is that he started, he didn't really look at the issue of party, whether I belong to this, whether I'm, you know, and all of that. Started synergizing with the top security brass, like visiting the chief of defense staff, you know, just to have some working relationship that says, look, even though I know my boundary as a governor when it comes to handling this kind of security issues, but we can work together. You understand? The major goal is that these senseless killings has to stop.
Is he working with security agencies now?
I mean, there never fell out of the relationship over time. It's just that because there are interference, some other people are feeling jittery, like, oh, I think he might, if eventually he's able to solve this problem, we might not be able to have a hold on the state anymore. So there are some kind of gang up, I would say, so, to actually make sure.
Is there anything wrong with the former governor? In fact, the former governor's predecessor, and the current governor. Is there anything wrong with all of them working together?
Yeah, so you see, politicians are quite very funny sometimes. They can't really be very funny. You will think that this is our state, and whatever it is that I have in mind to lead the state should be for the progress of the state. The Zamfara state's issue for a very long time now has been a pitiable one. One, when you look at the way it's been, the economic situation of the state, it's quite a very small state, and some people feel their holding sway is more important than people's lives. And
I mean,
they want to be called.
I don't want to be able to, I don't want to, you know, apportion blames to anyone.
Yeah.
But, you know, what Chamberlain is referring to is the fact that we've heard from the Minister of State for Defense. And then we've heard from the governor's side. And then they say, oh, we're supposed to see him. And he said, oh, he's not in the country. And he hasn't invited us back since then. And this has spiraled into some kind of divide that is actually making things worse in the state. That cooperation, and we heard that from the military as well. Look, we need more cooperation from the governor. Is there something that has been done since these calls? Or are things just going to continue getting worse?
Well, it's not about the call in real terms. You see, some of these gestures are just for a show-off. There's no genuine intention. If you invite me here to come and ridicule me, I don't have to come. Because I feel I already know what's your motive. I know what you want to achieve. Because, I mean, we also have intelligence all around, or you get what I'm saying? So as individuals, perhaps the governor saw some things. And if you notice, he's quite a gentleman. He mustn't come into the media and start spilling some of these things. But there is no genuinity in some of these gestures being shown towards him in combating this crime. You can't come here and tell me, oh, you want to see me so that we can work together. And the people from your place are giving us feedback to say this camp and camp A and B actually belongs to you. You're the one feeding them for whatever reason. So if you want to come have any conversation with me, can you please go and clear that, and let's have peace first and foremost, because it's like hypocrisy now.
Will it work if a third party tries to broker peace amongst all of them? Because the people of Zamfara have got to have a better life.
Definitely.
It will work if
What
a
third
neutral
party?
person?
Yeah, what neutral person would you suggest?
Well, I don't know. Maybe because I know some of these issues are also before the National Security Advisor, and that means by extension the president. And I think one of the things that shows that even the president is very serious about bringing an end to this whole issue is that he single-handedly decided to say Northwest in particular has actually been the major problem because it's not only Zamfara. You have neighboring states where these people come in from and all of that. Let's even look at it and say, the people saddled with the responsibility of security, let's pick it from amongst them so that there will be more seriousness. The minister of, the substantial minister of defense is from Northwest, the minister of state, the same zone, the chief of defense staff, from the same zone. Do you get? So really, he has really shown that, look, all I want is you have a mandate, you must bring an end to this issue. And because this is what is bedeviling and the whole of the North by extension, because it further impoverished the people. When people cannot even go to their farms. And Zamfara, back in the days, was tops when it comes to agriculture, cotton and all of that. But today, where are all those things?
I mean, with all of these talk coming up, Chamberlain, it makes me wonder if they can even have a protest. And we heard from the CP in the state. Because while we're talking about national issues and many people want to be able to come out and protest, should they be protesting in Zamfara? The CP says no. What do you think?
Well, not even just Zamfara, because I could tell you the
At
whole
least
of
the Yobe State
Nigeria.
CP said straightforward, we don't have the ability to handle any eventualities. You know, came out and basically said we're incapable of handling this.
Yes.
With Zamfara, he's saying no, we're hearing a different thing from him, but he's trying to tell people not to come out to protest. With all of this, should people be coming out to protest in Zamfara?
Usually, I tell you that, people shouldn't come out to protest. And I give you reasons. It's not just Zamfara. There are quite a lot of places, especially in northern Nigeria, that once it starts, there are people who they only hear go. When you say come, they don't even hear that anymore. So it becomes an issue. I remember I was part of a committee back in Jonathan's first tenure when he inherited the last 2 years from Yar'Adua, that there was a security report to say there's going to be post-election violence immediately after if Jonathan was declared the winner. And the NSA sent for us. We sat down, we analyzed the situation. We highlighted the most volatile states in northern Nigeria, who are the less volatile. You're sure if Bauchi didn't protest or go into any kind of rioting, Gombe is free. You can be sure if Kano didn't pick it, Katsina and Jigawa are spared out of it. You're sure if it doesn't happen in Kaduna, it's not happening in Zaria, it's not happening. So really, once you start this kind of issue, a region that is actually battling with insecurity as it is already, you're not bringing in the issue of some kind of protest that might spiral out of hands of security agencies, might not be able to curtail, because if you have these things happening simultaneously, then that means the capability of the security agencies is actually now limited. What states are you going to be deploying more troops from, right? Because it's happening everywhere. So really, we actually are afraid. Already there's a problem on ground. The government has actually gotten the message already as it is now. It has sent so much jitters. Even the news that there's going to be a protest has sent jitters to whoever is concerned. And I'm sure they are really doing all they can to really say, look, let's stem it from the birds. Because once this thing goes out of hand, you can't tell. It's going to further impoverish the people of that region that is already battling with insecurity, and innocent people who are just going about their means of livelihood are going to be the most affected, because eventually people's shops and things are going to get vandalized and looted. In fact, I'll tell you that during that post-election violence I refer to, if you drive a car in places like Kano that has Abuja plate number, you are part of the system, so it's going to be burnt. There's no any way. Just drop the car and run for your life. So that is the dimension it took. It was, some people even campaigned for their own candidate that they were rioting about that he lost the election. But the fact that the person is actually driving a plate number that carries Abuja. So you now see the kind of mentality we're trying to say, let's reorientate our people. Let's say from the position of strength. Now you're doing this from a position of strength, that the government is actually have heard your views, why you want to protest. And they are saying, let's come, let's have a dialogue, let's have a conversation around it. I think you're so strong from that angle. Because when you go in there, and even you, the organizers, the thing goes out of your hands, you're probably going to be answering some, mother issues in court or something like that. And even the whole essence is going to be lost in the whole brouhaha. So I think the right thing should be done at the right time. And, we're all calling for a better country. And we understand that, yes, there's so much anger in the land and if people want to express their views. But if it takes the dimension of some political undertone and all of that, I think we're not in support of it.
So what would you advise people in that region to do in order for them to actually say, look, we really are down, because, they say he that is down is fear no fall.
Yes.
So for them who think, look, we need to lend our voices so that the people can hear us in case they haven't heard us, because to a lot of them there, they are on the impression that maybe the authorities might have missed the point that they're trying to make. Yeah. So what would you tell them now if they really want to join the protest?
Well, I tell them that, look, let's be careful. Let's analyze the situation. Is the government ready to have a conversation around this issue? Because we don't want to get to a stage where what we're trying to now solve, look at what's happening in Sudan, you understand? So you are not solving the problem that brought about the protest, but rather now you are now treating how do we even fix it back the way it was before the protest, because there's so much destruction that has been done. You don't want to get to that stage. So really, if your threats about protest has sent this much jitters and called the attention of the government, the next question is, what is the government doing? The presidency should come out to say, we understand, we know your fears.
When I hear people bring out the worst case scenario and they always talk about how Sudan and how countries were disintegrated, it's a security failure. It's also a failure of governance.
Yeah.
But you can't say, for the fear that people might be violent, let us not exercise constitutional rights. That in itself is also wrong. It's a thinking process that I think has to go beyond what it is that we think we are scared of. No, you have your government. You should be able to handle problems when they happen, don't you think so? In a case of the protest, that's why I mentioned the Yobe CP, because he has said we can't handle it. So we know that there's something wrong with the police in that place there. But in other places where the police are able to handle this situation, why not just deploy more men, make sure, aren't you trained? A lot of money, all of our money goes into security in this country. So what are people trying to say? If there's going to be breakdown of law and order, the security agency should be able to handle that, don't you think?
So, well, that's another issue entirely, because we're talking about issue of security now. Has there been adequate security in the land even before now? The answer is no. So it's an issue of beefing up the security system, perhaps deploy more hands. As it is today, there's no enough policing in the country as it is. You want to have a simultaneous protest going on in all the 36 states at the same time. Where are you going to call for more hands when it goes out of hand from? That's the question. But in particular, in the North, we are more concerned because there's a problem already. There's a problem of poverty. There's a problem of unemployment. There's a problem of security issues, which is top. That is still one of the reasons prompting people to say, well, we're also ready to come out to protest. And we are not afraid that if the whole of these things start happening, to what extent can the security provide,
We've heard people talk about NSAS and how they thought it went awry, how they thought it didn't achieve anything. But most of them usually leave out the fact that it was peaceful initially, until certain forces introduced certain groups of people in there, and then things went wrong. But politicians, we saw how they were targeted. And chances are that if this goes on, we don't know for how long, there's a possibility that they'll target politicians again. There's a possibility that, who knows, it might spiral out of control. But the big question is, assuming this doesn't even happen, so when NSAS happened and all the unfortunate scenarios played out, it does appear as though politicians still don't learn the lesson. You've still seen how they live their lives, how they still run the people off the roads with their sirens. So how will they then get the message if the people feel, look, this is one way we'll have to get our voices heard. If we don't do this, they will never learn. What do people do?
Yeah, so what do you intend to achieve with the protest should be the #1 question. Now, the protest hasn't happened because you want the government to hear your voice. That's the reason why you want to protest. But the protest is yet to happen, but it has garnered a lot of publicity that's even far more reaching than some kind of protest in the long run. Do you get? So that's the point that I'm making, that if the government has actually gotten this message, and I think this is what we wanted to achieve, except if I just want my name to be written in gold, or I want it to be that, oh, we actually planned a protest and it's actually succeeded. Whether we got what we wanted or not, our goal is we must protest, and I want it to be that we were the one who actually organized that protest and it happened in this country. But if that is not the case, if the government has heard you, and I'm saying, I'm also calling out the presidency that there's a need for you to speak to Nigerians, to say we have gotten the message.
Okay.
And we really are working on it. I know I'm aware of some efforts.
Mr. Musa, just a quick one, and I think that's a very, very strong thing that you said, that the president should address the people. How about the governors? I keep going there because the governors are closer to Nigerians than the president. The governors can take their concerns, the concerns they have against the government, the federal government, from the states by the governors, just as the governor of Lagos State did at the time. I think Governor Abiodun of Ogun State did the same, took a letter representing the things, that the demands of the NSAS protesters at the time. But the governors themselves don't seem to be speaking to the people. We hear of pockets of engagement, town halls, and all of those things, but it would seem like these are just reactionary. How about proactive action from the angles of the state governors to say, we hear you, we know what you're going through, these are the things that we're doing? Just like the example of Niger State, for instance. Can you hear me, Mr. Musa?
Okay, so I say what you said is actually the right thing. I think some of the governors should come down from their high horses and realize that the interest of their states comes first. And they should be able to be talking to them. It's not only when politics is around the corner, elections are coming, that you go from one local government to the other campaigning. When there are issues, when people are complaining, because before now, I'm sure some of these conversations have been going around in some of those states where the governors are also aware. They have their security, the intelligence who informs them of what is happening in various wards and local governments. They should be addressing the people. Sometimes when you're hungry and somebody speaks nice to you, you just feel, no, it's okay, I understand. You know what I'm saying? So really, they need to communicate more. The president can actually not be everywhere. I mean, if he's released a statement today, it's not everybody that is going to read it all. But you see, the interest of the nation should be number one, whether you are in APC or you're in PDP or you're in Labour Party. So when you know, because they also have their meetings, you know, executive council meeting and all of that. I know once they are in that hall, they see themselves as one. The same message should be translated to the states to say, look, we know your hardship.
Yes,
just give us a little bit more time. We're trying to. Yes.
Yeah. That taken. Do you think, from what people experience in their states, a whole load of miscommunication tend to go out sometimes? For instance, when we hear that the federal government released some resources to the states and that those resources should be sent to the people or given to the people, one rhetoric or the other will say whether or not those things really got to the people. Recently, the president made a statement. I think he was hosting traditional rulers and community leaders at the time, and said that the governor should be called out. Now, I don't know how easily you think people can engage with their governors. How do you think that can be done? And do you think that can have any effect or impact on forestalling this impending protest?
Yeah, so I think it's achievable. It's something that is quite doable if we have the right people in the right places. You know, having elected the right people into office is one of the key major steps towards achieving that. Because you just want to look at, when you know someone is incompetent of achieving anything for himself, you know, you're also going ahead to say these are the right people to actually be saddled with responsibility of governing us, that's where you can actually start missing your steps. So I think for those governors, or the people themselves need to know that we need to get our own representatives, the people who actually are with us, who knows what we're going through, who knows our difficulties we face on a daily basis, our challenges, you know, and will fight for us eventually. Not people who are actually just self-centered, who are just there for themselves and their families alone, but people who actually have the interests of the masses at heart. So without doing that, you keep getting it wrong all the time, because each time you think you're making one step forward, you're actually taking 2 steps backward eventually. So really, that is the number one step that needs to be taken for that kind of scenario you painted to actually be achieved.
Samuel Musa, National Coordinator, Grassroots Mobilization Initiative, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's read some messages that you've sent to us. This one comes in from Professor Enahena. He says, protest is demanding better living wages, cuts in multi-taxation and recurrent expenditure, diversify the economy, cut in the interest rates and the hyperinflation, availability of electricity and reduction in petroleum product prices, and let's have workable refineries to banish fuel scarcity and irresponsible hoarding that has led to increase in petroleum prices.
Well, this message here from Festus Akimboyewa, he says, unfortunately, protests have never achieved any growth for Nigeria. There's no doubt that the foundations of our economy have collapsed and need a leader who's willing to make bold and difficult decisions to fix it. Those who want to protest and want fuel subsidies and exchange subsidies to return should tell us how they'll be paid for. Let those who want to protest do so, but it's time to face the reality.
Well, the thing is, as we speak now, the fuel queues have resurfaced in parts of Abuja, so big questions, why again? But also, maybe when politicians want to adjust and steal public funds with public pen, or with the pen or their pen, they should also remember there's Liberia, there's Sudan, there's Libya. Maybe if they start thinking that way, you never know. Things might just be, at least, baby steps to getting better. That is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Stay safe wherever you are. I'm Kayla Magwa. See you tomorrow.
Do they really need to go to Liberia and all those countries? Let's just look back in our history. Calabar and Egba, they are there. I'm Aya Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.